Welcome to the final episode of Golf Equipment 101. Today, we're going to be talking about golf heads and the different types of golf clubs. So we're going to talk about drivers, fairway woods, hybrids, irons, wedges, putters, what they all do, what they all look like, the differences between them. So, with that being said, let's get started. All right, so let's start off with the driver. Now, the driver is the largest club in the bag. It is the one that goes the furthest as well. It's also the longest club in the bag. Now, a lot of times I hear people get confused and they will call a 3-wood a driver just because it's a wood and they kind of look the same. But the driver is going to be significantly larger than you will see with a 3-wood. I'm going to show you a 3-wood here in 1 second. You'll be able to see the massive difference between the two in terms of size. So one thing that I don't want to say drives me crazy, but one thing that, you go to somewhere like Topgolf or something like that, or even the time I worked in the retail space and somebody would come in and they would be looking for a driver and they would tell me that they saw one that they liked and it ended up being a 3-wood. It just caused a lot of confusion. So drivers are the largest, typically 445 to 460 cc's, which is the largest club head size allowed by the USGA and the RNA. So they're going to be the biggest, the most, you're going to swing these the fastest, you're going to hit them the furthest. You can also see that the face is going to be very deep as well. So what I mean by deep is that distance right there from the bottom to the top. It's going to be much deeper than a 3-wood is. So when you're going shopping and you are trying to find a new club, make sure that if you need a driver, you're actually shopping for a driver. If you need a 3-wood, actually be shopping for a 3-wood. But if you need the big dog, the one you hit the furthest, you're looking for a driver. Now, drivers come in different lofts. There's not many shapes. There are some subtle changes in shape when you go from brand to brand, things like that. But when it comes to drivers, the biggest thing you're looking for is maximum distance. Now, how do we achieve maximum distance? Well, how we achieve maximum distance is through specific launch conditions. Now, what I mean by launch conditions is how the ball flies once it leaves the club face. And the way we maximize distance is with high launch and low spin. So, how do we achieve high launch and low spin? Well, the first way we do that is through the loft of the club. The loft of the club is this part right here. It's an amount in degrees that the club is. Now, the loft of a driver is anywhere from 7 degrees to 9 degrees. You'll even see some at 10.5 degrees. That's a really popular size as well. It'll go as high as 13, sometimes even 14 degrees, depending on what you're trying to do, right? And the loft affects that launch and that spin. The higher the loft, the higher the ball is going to travel. The higher the loft, the more spin you're going to get. There are times where you get a great launch, but you don't have the right amount of spin. Maybe you're spinning it too much. Or maybe you get a great launch angle, but you're not spinning it enough. And so those are things you want to look for when you are looking for that driver. You want to make sure you're getting the maximum distance possible. You want to make sure that you're getting the right amount of spin. Too much spin and you'll see some ballooning is what it's called. It's where the ball goes out and then it goes straight up in the air. And so instead of using that ball speed that you get, that how fast it comes off the face to propel the ball out, it ends up spinning it too much and you waste all that energy going up rather than out. And if you've ever played baseball or have watched baseball, you've heard of something called the knuckleball. A knuckleball is where the ball has no spin and it just drops out of the sky. Well, as you can imagine, that's not what you want with a golf shot either. You don't want the ball to go out, flutter, and then fall back down to the sky. So be aware when you are looking at drivers that you don't get something too low spin or too high spin. In a future video, a Golf Equipment 201 video, we'll talk about those perfect launch conditions for a driver. But for today, since you're just getting started, it's really good to know that the driver is the biggest club in the bag, and it's the one that you are going to hit the furthest. All right, next club in the bag in terms of top down is the Fairway Wood. So this right here is a 3-wood. Fairway Woods can come in 3, 4, 5, 7, 9. I've seen some 11 woods. And really all we are talking about there is the loft of the club. So a 3-wood, as you can see, is much smaller than the driver. You can see how much smaller it is. It almost fits in my hand, whereas that driver would not fit in my hand like that. So the Fairway Wood is a very interesting club. A lot of people, since it has more loft and it's typically shorter than a driver, most people think it's easier to hit, especially off a tee. And I can't say I disagree with them. You'll see 3-woods played a lot of times when there is trouble, like a bunker or water on a hole, and hitting the driver, you may hit it a little bit too far left or a little bit too far right, but the 3-wood you hit much straighter. It's much easier to hit. So you'll see people play this off the tee. Another place you'll see it played is from the fairway on something like a par 5, maybe a par 4, depending on how far you hit things. But that is a case-to-case basis. But the 3-wood is typically 14, 15 degrees. Your 4-wood is looking probably 17 degrees. Most 4-woods are 17 degrees. But 4-woods are kind of fading. You don't see them as often. When you do, they're very rare. Then you have a 5-wood, which is typically, now I don't want to speak in absolutes, 18 to 19 degrees. And then 7-woods, 9-woods, Haven woods, it really depends on the manufacturer. The things you're going to see the most when you're shopping are 3 and 5-woods with the occasional 4-wood thrown in there. So what you're going to want to look for is something that you can control. So you hit it fairly straight, fairly consistent off a tee. But you do want to get maximum distance out of this as well. Me personally, I hit mine about 235, 240. If I can get that distance with the 3-wood, I'm pretty happy. For some people, a 3-wood goes 200. But you do want to maximize launch and spin with this as well. What's different with this than the driver is you do want to try this off the ground as well. Since you won't be hitting it exclusively off the tee box like you will a driver, you want to hit some with tees, but you also want to hit some off the ground so you know that you're going to get performance off the ground when you're sitting in the fairway or in the rough and you need to hit the ball as far as possible. You are going to want to know that you can hit and trust your fairway wood off the ground. Now, you don't have to play a 3 and a 5-wood. A lot of people do. I personally don't play a 5-wood because I don't like the way they look. I can see too much of the face. It looks like the ball's going to pop up and hit me straight in the face. So I decided to go with a hybrid. Now, what's a hybrid, you asked? It's a good thing you asked that because let's talk about them next. All right, so now let's talk hybrids. Now, hybrids are a fairly new thing to the market. When I say fairly new, I mean they've been around since 2002, probably 2003, maybe even 05. They've been around a while, but in the grand scheme of things, they are pretty new when it comes to golf equipment. Now, what is a hybrid? A hybrid, like a car, is a combination of one technology and another technology. So in the car situation, it's gasoline and electric. In the world of golf clubs, a hybrid is a mix between a fairway wood and an iron. So you can see it's got this hollow body. It's got this hollow body. It's a pretty big club head, especially compared to irons, but it's not quite as big as a fairway wood. Now, why is that? Why would you want that? Long irons, especially 3, 4 irons, 2 irons, are really hard to hit up in the air. Right, for a lot of us, we don't have enough swing speed to get it up in the air as quickly as it needs to be, or with enough spin so that it lands softly. So the hybrid, with its weight moved to the back with its hollow body and that heavy sole, that really helps move the center of gravity down low so that we can get the ball up a little bit easier. Also, this club shape is much more resistant to being grabbed by the rough and twisting. These hybrids will actually glide right through the rough. So, me personally, I play a 3 and a 4 hybrid. I really like the hybrids. Some people don't play hybrids because they think they make the ball go left. And for some people, they do. For me, I hit them dead nuts straight, and I love it when I get to pull one out of the bag. For me, I carry a 3 and a 4 hybrid, and they go from 215 for the 3 hybrid to 200 with the 4 hybrid. They're much easier to hit than my long irons are, so I think I'm going to keep them in the bag for a while. They're definitely something that you want to look at and make sure that they are right for you before playing them. So we've gone driver, fairway wood, hybrid. So that is pretty much it for all of our hollow-bodied clubs. Now we're going to talk irons. All right, so in my last part where we talked about hybrids, I talked about how a hybrid was a mix of a iron and a fairway wood. And if you're watching this, you may have some questions on what is an iron. So an iron is actually used anywhere from typically about 110 yards all the way back to some people use an iron for shots that go 215, 220. Irons are typically numbered anywhere from 3 to 9, and then it'll have a P or a W on it for a pitching wedge. You'll sometimes see them 4 through pitching wedge, 5 through pitching wedge. I play 5 through pitching wedge since I have a 4 hybrid that I like to use. But you use each club, so a 3 iron or a 4 iron goes one distance, a particular distance. Your 5 iron goes another distance. Your 6 iron goes another distance. 7 goes shorter. 8 goes even shorter than the 7. The 9 goes shorter than the 8. And the pitching wedge goes shorter than the 9 iron. So when it comes to using the irons, there are more irons in your bag than anything else. But there are particular times when you need to use certain irons. The further out, the lower the number you're going to be hitting. Right, so like I was saying, a 3 iron goes further than a 4 iron, a 4 iron than a 5, and so forth. Now, another thing I want you to be aware of with irons is, you can see here, I have 3 irons laid out. I have 3 irons standing here, and all 3 are a different type of iron. And you can actually see the big differences in them. All right, so starting on the right, this one right here, I want you to really pay attention to how thin that is. You may have heard people before say a blade iron or blade type of club. A blade. I want to play a blade. And what they mean by that is what is called a muscle back. Okay? So a muscle back club, you can actually see it here, is one that doesn't have a cavity carved into it. It's one solid piece of metal, and it's usually pretty thin on top. Now, these are the hardest clubs to hit. The reason being is all the mass is centered around the middle of the club, so it feels the best, right? all the mass being in the sweet spot. When you hit it in the sweet spot, it is awesome. But the problem is, if you hit it out here, out on the toe a little bit, the club has a tendency to spin a little bit. And since there's more mass in the middle rather than out on the toe or in the heel, what you run across is that there's not as much power out here on the toe or in the heel. So if you hit it in the middle, it feels great and it goes a long way. But the problem is, not all of us are perfect ball strikers. And so if you hit it too much in the heel like here, you lose precious distance. Okay? So blades feel great and they look awesome. I love the way a good blade iron looks. But I gotta say, they are the hardest ones to hit. So the next one we're going to talk about is right here in the middle. And this right here is what is called a super game improvement iron. So you can see it has this large cavity in the back. I don't know if you can actually see it, but you can watch me put my finger in here and look how much my finger is covered. Okay? I can't do that on this club. So you can see this huge cavity, this cutout right here. But what does that do? Well, that helps us move this weight around. Right, so all this weight that's here in the middle, that is normally here, is now on the outside. So that makes it harder for the club to twist. Okay, so if you hit it out on the toe, it's not going to twist as easy as this one will, because there's more mass here, right? If I were to put a bunch of weight behind that toe, it would take more pressure to put it to make it twist, right? Now, the other benefit of it is if you do hit it out here on this toe, there's more mass back here. So while it won't spin as much, it's also going to go a little bit further, right? You have more mass behind the ball here than even necessarily here. So that right there is going to give us a huge benefit. But there are some bad things about this, right? Just like this one's very hard to hit, this one can sometimes spin too much. Now, you may remember that I was talking with drivers that if you have too much spin, you lose distance because the ball shoots straight up in the air and you spend all your speed going up rather than out. And so what this allows us to do is with this design, the problem you run into is too much spin. Also, this is a little complex once we get into it. If I do a 201 series, we're going to really explore the, if I ever get to a 201 series, we are going to actually talk about offset. Offset is it helps the ball go left in layman's terms, helps the ball go left. So if you have a club with a lot of offset and you don't need help getting the ball to go left, let's say you already hit the ball left a lot, it may not be the right club for you. All right, so the third and final kind of iron I want to talk about is what is kind of called a game improvement iron, a player's cavity. So what you'll see is I get this little cavity, but it's not nearly the size of this one right here, but there is a little cavity. So that's going to allow the company to really move this weight out here and put some down here, move a little to the top and to the heel. So you're still going to get good feel because you have a lot of mass down by the sweet spot, but you're going to get some of that resistance to twisting. Me personally, I play the one on the left, the one I just showed you, this player's cavity, this game improvement iron. I play this because that one's a little too hard to hit. This one spins way too much. And so this one right here actually ends up working perfect for me. So I like the forgiveness. I like that little bit of help that it provides. It's definitely something that is a benefit for a player like me. I don't always consistently hit the ball very well. But it also gives me a better look. I lose all the offset. It's a thinner top line, not nearly as thin as that Titleist blade is, but it still gives me a little bit of confidence behind the ball. I also don't spin them too much. They don't go as left. So overall, that's my favorite type. They also feel really good. Now, I have played all three of these clubs in a round of golf before. I've played blades. I've played that big chunky wedge, that big chunky pitching wedge that you see right there. And I've played that 7-iron on the left. In fact, like I said, that 7-iron on the left is actually the one that I currently have in my bag. So I personally love it. That's the one for me. But I also can't speak for you. So what you want to do is you want to go in. If you're a beginner to the game, you might want to look at that middle one, right? That middle one is a great option. It's going to help you get the ball in the air. It's going to help you take away that slice. That's the shot most amateur golfers struggle with. So don't be afraid to test things out and know what you're looking for. It's always good to go in when you go shopping as a knowledgeable consumer. It really helps the salesperson, but it also helps you know that you're getting something that's right for you. All right, now that we've talked irons, let's talk wedges. This right here is a wedge. It is my 54-degree wedge. I use it as a sand wedge. You've probably heard that term sand wedge before, and you've probably heard pitching wedge as well. Me personally, I consider a pitching wedge a part of an iron set, since most of the time it matches your set of irons, whereas the wedges are different. Now, there's some different terminology around wedges that we need to discuss in terms of naming the wedges. So a lot of people, when they first get into it, they've heard of a sand wedge before, so they call all wedges sand wedges, and that can create some confusion because sand wedges, in modern terms, are something that's typically 54 to 56 degrees. Now, some people play what is called a gap wedge. I, for instance, am somebody who plays a gap wedge. My gap wedge is 50 degrees. You'll see gap wedges anywhere from about 48 degrees to a 52 degree wedge. So 48 to 52 is typically a gap wedge. You'll find some pitching wedges that are 48 degrees, but that's going to be on some older clubs. And then the next one is the sand wedge that we've all heard of. Now, those typically go from 54 to 56 degrees. I play a 54. And then you have what's called a lob wedge or an L wedge. And those are typically 58 to, you'll see some even as high as 64. Now, a 64 degree wedge is really hard to hit, especially with the full shot. But if you think it's right for you, I can't stop you from doing it. Now, what makes a wedge different from an iron? Well, first off, a lot of wedges have a special grind on the bottom. So do you see how in this wedge, you can actually see this line right here? You can actually see that line where it's a different shade and all of that. That's the grind of the wedge. Okay? Now, what does a grind do? It really depends on the wedge and the person. There are a bunch of different grinds. There's a bunch of different things like that you can really focus on. It can definitely get pretty complicated if you really get into the wedge world. But wedges are for shorter shots. They're for shots that go under 100 yards typically. My gap wedge, my 50 degree wedge, I use for about 110 yards. And then everything else is right around the green or, 100 yards in. So a wedge is really good to help you chip. You can hit pitch shots with it. You can hit full shots with it. They're very versatile. So you want to make sure that you have one that fits your game right. And the other important thing when choosing wedges is to work on your gapping. You don't want to have an empty space at the bottom of your bag where you don't have a way to hit a 60-yard shot successfully. Most people play 3 to 4 wedges. Depends on the courses that they play and things like that. But a wedge comes individually packaged rather than as a set like a set of irons do. So like I said, with those irons, they come in a 3-through pitching wedge, a 4-through pitching wedge, 5-through pitching wedge, things like that. The irons are going to be a separate thing in and of themselves. They also have a lot more grooves, it seems. So these grooves are going to help clear debris and help you just hit better shots with a little bit more spin. Spin is your friend around the green, as is bounce, which is a measurement on the bottom of the club. Bounce, spin, and the grind are all things you are looking for with your wedge. This one happens to be a TaylorMade. I have a couple of Clevelands. I have one that I did the grind on myself as a test. So wedges are pretty cool. A lot of people really like wedges. The really cool thing with wedges is the amount of personalization people do with it. There's a lot of cool stampings and things like that you can do. You can put your initials on them, stuff like that. So look out for that kind of stuff, the cool customization when you are looking at wedges. All right, so we have one more type of club to discuss, and that is going to be the putter. All right, so you can see here I have a bunch of different putters out right now. A putter is a very personal experience. What works for one person may not work for another. Also here you can see a bunch of different shapes of heads. Now, all of these have their own benefits. A lot of these are strictly for the looks. You can see different colors, different materials, everything like that. So a putter is a very personal experience and one that it's really hard to tell somebody how to get fit for. Really, what you need to do when you are looking for putters is go try a bunch of putters. There are different things you can look for, length. A lot of people play putter that's too long for them, but you can look at length, weight, shape. Some shapes may look good to you, some shapes may not look good to you. And again, that's all personal preference. No one can say if a putter is good or bad, in my personal opinion, because what's bad for me may be great for you. I can't tell you if it won't work for you. All that can happen with putters is I say, I made a lot of putts with it, or I didn't make any putts with it, or I thought it felt great, or I don't know, I just didn't like the look of it. I would prefer the look of X. But since we got them here, let's go over some different types of putters. This right here is a mallet putter. You'll hear them called mallets quite often. So a mallet putter is a little bit longer in the back, and it follows the same kind of principle that the irons did. Remember how those ones that had the weight kind of pulled away from the face and had that cavity? Well, that provides a little bit of forgiveness. If I hit this here, it doesn't quite spin as easily as this one does, right? So this one is a mallet, and these three are blade putters. Now, there's a little bit of a cavity in all of them, and that's going to give what's called heel-toe weighting. So toe, heel weighting, heel-toe weighting. And those are going to provide a little bit of forgiveness, but not nearly as much as the one on the right does. Again, who's to say what's right? Who's to say what's wrong? One thing to look for with a putter, though, that I can tell you, is going to be the shape of the neck. So you're going to see some that are what's called a plumber's neck, where it almost makes an L. Then you're going to see something like this, which is a single bend, because it bends one time right there. This one and this one are kind of S necks or slant necks. And then that one also, I would say, is probably a slant neck as well. So as you can see, I like a slant neck. But then you have a single bend. You'll also come across double bends where it bends twice right there. You'll see, like I said, the plumber's neck. And you'll see some that go straight into the club rather than have a little knob like this. Best piece of advice, like I said, is to tell you to go grab your own putter. Go to a golf store, hit 50 different putters, hit them 50 different times, and see which one you like the most. I got fit for the one on the left, and it's the one I like the most too. So putters are really hard to tell you what to do, and really to even give advice on. Anytime somebody asks me, oh, what putter should I get? I'm always like, the one you like the most. All right, so now that we have gone over all of the different types of clubs, that concludes Golf Equipment 101. You should have enough knowledge now to go into a golf store and be comfortable knowing that what you're asking for is the right thing. You should have the confidence to be able to come out and go, this is exactly what I wanted, exactly the price I wanted to pay. I got the shaft I wanted, I got the grip I wanted, and I got the club head that I wanted. Again, if you have any other questions along the way, please leave them in the comments below. You can find me on social media and ask me on there. Search for me on Facebook if you search at The Green Fee. The Twitter is at The Green Fee 1. Instagram is at The Green Fee. And the email is thegreenfeegolf@gmail.com. I'd love to help you out, answer any questions you have about golf clubs. If you're shopping for a golf club and you want to know if something is a good deal, in my opinion, I'll gladly give you that as well. Until next time, hit them straight. Have a good one. All right, well, I want to thank you so much for watching. I hope you've learned a lot through Golf Equipment 101. We've talked about the shaft, the grip, the different parts of a golf club. We've talked about the different types of golf clubs, drivers, irons, wedges, hybrids, fairway woods, and the differences between them. I hope you've actually learned a lot throughout this. I also hope that this has helped you become a better consumer of golf equipment. With the data that has come out about how much new golfers are getting involved in golf, I really wanted to do this for you guys so that you know when you go into a store that you're getting exactly what you need. Again, if you have any questions along the way, drop them in the comments below. I'd also love it if you liked and subscribed to my channel. You can even set notifications whenever I post a new video. I got a couple of good reviews coming up that I hope to post pretty soon. I also would love it if you followed me on all your social media platforms. We're talking Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Obviously, I'm here on YouTube. I host a weekly podcast in which I talk about all the cool new golf equipment news that is hit over that last week. It's supposed to be weekly. I try to do it as much as I can with my schedule. So I really hope that you continue to follow along and you learn even more. I also hope to do a Golf Equipment 201 where we go next level in explaining some of these concepts behind the clubs. We'll talk about center of gravity, loft and lie, things like that will also help you be a better consumer. If you have any questions, like I said, reach out to me on any of the social media platforms, and I would love to help you out. Again, my name's Robert. You're on The Green Fee. Please, please, please like and subscribe. Have a great day and hit 'em straight.